Hi, and welcome to Focal Point. My name is Carla Green. I am the director of the Regional Prevention Center here at the Kansas City, Kansas Community College. And once again today, we're going to be talking to a member of one of the student organizations here on campus to talk about some of the things that that group is doing and how the involvement in that student group is helping and how that is beneficial to the student experience. So today I have with me Kimberley Kinney. Welcome.
Thank you.
And tell me what group you're involved with.
I am with KNEA Student Program, which is the Kansas National Education Association.
Okay. And what does that group do?
The student program is for teachers, or people who are becoming teachers, young men and women, and it is sponsored by the NEA and the KNEA, which is the Kansas version of NEA, by the full-time teachers. It's to help us become teachers, help us become better teachers.
Okay.
So that is what the group stands for.
So how long has that group been here on campus?
I am the first chapter president. We formed officially last January. So we've been here for a year now.
Okay. And tell me why. I mean, obviously, we've had an education program for years on campus. Why now do we have KNEA?
KNEA actually has been around for a long time. The student chapter came about because a bunch of us students did know of the existence at Emporia State, Wichita State and places like that. But we knew that we needed a local chapter here because the chapter forms and you automatically have tons of resources open to you. You have help with lesson plans of why you want to become a teacher. You have the teaching insurance. You should, even if you're going to make an observation in a classroom, you should not walk into that classroom unless you're covered. Because if something goes wrong in that classroom because you're over the age of 18, you can be held liable.
I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. Just resources, meanings of how to become a leader in the classroom, a leader in your community, because that's what teachers are leaders in their communities.
Okay. Are there any, say, mentoring programs, maybe?
Yes, there are some mentoring programs where you can pair up with a teacher within District 500, Johnson County districts, any of the districts, as you're getting towards your student teaching to see how a classroom is running, to see how you handle everyday problems that teachers face, overcrowding, not enough resources, bullying, things like that. So you can pair up with a full-time teacher, but it also, they help with the testing that you have to do to become a teacher. There's a lot of tests that you have to take. How to find a job after you graduate college. There's lots of resources there. So every year that you're a member of KNEA student program, when you start your first year of teaching, you get a discount on your first year of dues.
Oh. Which
can be rather expensive. So you can end up with your dues cut in half for the first year. Okay.
So as a member of KNEA, you obviously have meetings here on campus. Is there someone from the parent organization that comes to those meetings, or are you all on your own? Do you have your own structure for your meetings?
We have our own structure. We can request a visitor come in. We have a person comes in named Kevin Scarrow who comes in for our praxis training that we'll be doing this semester.
Now tell me what praxis is.
Praxis are the tests that you have to take to become a teacher.
Okay.
There are a series of them. Some get you into your college, and then once you get past your teaching college, to graduate and get your licensure, you have to have these tests taken, and they're rather intense because if you're in elementary, they're going to cover a whole range of subjects. When you're secondary ed, like I am, they're going to cover history and some areas around that. So.
Okay. So you have those meetings. Tell me what a typical meeting is for you.
A typical meeting is where we have our normal business, old and new, and then we talk about fundraising. How do we make better teachers programs? Right now, the emphasis in NEA and KNEA is involving teachers and in the role of the government because our budgets are being cut.
Right.
Teachers are no longer hold the respect that they used to, so we're on the firing line. How do we make better teachers? How do we get money for our schools? Teachers have dropped off in the voting. We need to vote. So we've been pushing, our next big push is a voter registration. Kansas has enacted a law that is close to voter suppression. And we want people to know that you can come to the community college, register to vote. We want to make sure people realize that voting is still their option. They still control that. So we're going to have a voter drive. And we're going to have a big forum about voter suppression. and how the law is close to it.
So is your chapter involved, I know you're talking about voters registration, do you all also get involved in lobbying?
Yes.
In what way?
We go to the state capitol. We went to the state capitol back in August to let the governor know we were not happy with funding of education. We write letters. There's something called Under the Dome that is sponsored by KNEA that lets you know that goes on in the legislature right now of CAPERS, which is the retirement benefits for teachers, about budgets. The governor's budget, if he gets his way, will decimate District 500 as well as all other poor small districts across the state. Johnson County is about the only district that'll benefit from it.
And District 500 is our largest school district here in Wyandotte County, in an urban setting. Tell me how that legislation would impact that school district specifically.
It will allow school districts to do raising of property taxes. You don't have multi-million-dollar homes in this district. Johnson County does, and unfortunately that pits county against county, and it should not be that way. Disbursements of funds should be on the greater need, and we don't have the ability to raise that kind of money. Even with Piper attached, we still don't.
So if we are basing our funding on the greater need, what is that greater need that you all have identified in, say, in District 500?
Schools at risk. Most of our children in the District 500 receive help with food for the lunches and breakfast. So we're dealing with desperately poor households who don't have don't have fancy computers at home. Mom and dad are probably high-stress jobs if they're working at all right now. So we need to make sure that our students have books. They have all the current technology that's available. We have top-notch teachers. Teaching, unless you are very affluent, you're going to be paying student loans off for several years afterwards. I know I will. Because mostly when you get out, you have a bachelor's, you have a license to teach, but you're going to go back and get that master's.
Right.
And anymore, you're getting a doctorate too. So there is a lot of education required to be a teacher.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. Let's say that we don't actively address the funding for schools, and so we do have those school districts that are not quite being funded to the level at which they can offer a high level of education to students. How does that impact society?
It creates bad economic conditions, because when you don't give a child the full potential to become whatever they really want to be, regardless of their financial background, then you're limiting to low-income jobs. Regardless of the skin tone, regardless of what their religious beliefs are, or regardless of their households, they should be allowed to reach any job they want to be. You're telling them that they're not worth it. And telling a child that, you're telling the child they're going to fail.
Right.
And that to me is awful. To fund a school education, we should be able to give a child the same ability than if they live in a rich neighborhood.
Okay. So, you said you are organizing a voters drive. What else have you done in the community or here on campus?
On campus last semester, we had a legislation and education. We had Dr. Val Wynn, who is a state legislator, and Dr. Cheryl Spalding, who is a state legislator, and she's from Johnson County. She was the Republican, Dr. Wynn was the Democrat. They both are pro-education, but talking about how we keep education viable within the community, how we talk about funding. Even though we get money from the state, it's still going to come up to the local schools, districts, and the parents need to speak up, teachers need to speak up, because essentially the outcome is the same. Our future, our children.
Right. And so you mentioned parents need to speak up, and that's really the first time that we've talked about parents, because our focus has been on teachers. Does the KNEA work with parents at all to increase their involvement in their children's education?
Yes, they do.
How does that happen?
If you go to the website, there is links about parents and education, how to be a proactive parent in a classroom with a child. Okay. It's not, teaching's not just the time the child is at school. It's the child coming home, homework being done, making sure the child completes the studies, because the child who's prepared the next morning comes in better. I fight that battle with my son, as we were talking. I have a 10-year-old who right now is pushing back. He's at that stage where you push back. Privileges get taken away. And until we comply. Homework gets done. It is not an option of, oh, I'm not going to do that because I know the subject matter. That's nice. Repetition is there for a reason.
Right.
So it's talking about how you can have a better child, how you read to your children. Parents learn like child does. Pick up a program on a television that's not pure entertainment. Turn on something that's educational. You may be surprised what you learned yourself.
Right.
We encourage that. We encourage parents to read to their children. Often we get pushback, well, I don't have time to read, or it's so boring. Well, you know what? That's one-on-one time with that child. It's your uninterrupted time. And a 15-minute book can build a lifelong reader, especially at an early age.
Right.
So we push for that.
Okay. Do you have active engagement from parents?
Yes and no. I think a lot of parents are feeling like that because they hear in the press, oh, all they are is about their paycheck. Well, it's not.
Right.
There is a school district in Pennsylvania right now because Pennsylvania cut over $800 million from their school budget. The teachers are not getting paid right now, but they're still in the classroom because the outcome is our future of that child.
Right.
So I think there's a misconception. We need to have parents realize that teaching goes hand in hand with child rearing. We are your best friend. We're not your enemy. Yes, we know there's teachers who should not teach, just like there's nurses who should not nurse and there's doctors who should not be doctors. We strive to be the best teachers we can be, and that's what KNEA and the NEA stand for, is good teachers in the classroom.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm actually glad that you all are on campus. I think that is an excellent foundation being provided for future teachers to really give you an insight into what teaching is all about, and that it's not just what goes on in your classroom. There's a whole host of other issues that have to be addressed if we're going to be successful.
Teachers, if you look back through the history of this country, teachers are the people who led all the social changes. They were in the American Revolution. Thomas Jefferson credits a teacher that he had in college as having a great influence on him. We were the ones who fought against child labor. We fought against slavery. We fought for women's rights. We fought through civil rights. Teachers have always been the ones who for social change. So we as teachers must be leaders. We have to stand within the community and say, you know, it's not right. Yeah, it may not be popular, but it's not right. So.
I like your message. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to continue talking to Kimberly about some of the things that KNEA is doing here on campus, and also what led her to become interested in education. We'll be right back.
Our fugitive has been on the run for 90 minutes. Average foot speed over uneven terrain, barring any injuries, is 4 miles per hour. What I need from each and every one of you is a full target search of every gas station, residence, warehouse, farmhouse, hen house, outhouse, and doghouse in that area. Your fugitive has just cashed in his 401k plan, and all he had to do was roll it over.
Learn about rollovers and protecting your financial future, and choose to save.
You can't mess with a big dog.
They said heroin would be the best high I ever had.
Sweetheart? Hey, sweetie, listen to me.
They said heroin would be the best high I ever had. They lied. Find out the truth about heroin. drugfreeworld.org.
Welcome back to Focal Point. We're going to continue our conversation talking about the KNEA student chapter here on the Kansas City, Kansas Community College campus, and want to back up just a little bit. We've talked a lot about a little bit of the history of KNEA and some of the things that KNEA does as an organization. Tell me, and I know that you're not in a school setting yet, what's the relationship between KNEA and school districts typically?
It can be friendly.
Okay.
It can be contentious. It depends on the school district. KNEA does not seek out to have a contentious relationship. We do protect the teachers, but we also protect the students. It's not teachers versus students. Literally, it is meshed together because we are a craft union, but, and yes, you have the word union, but our outcome is the child. We care very much about our end product because our end product is our future leaders. And so we realize that teaching is an ever-changing, craft. It's not the same thing it was back in the 1900s or when I was going to school in the 70s and 80s. It's completely different. It evolves. So KNEA prefers strong teachers. Our contact with the districts is usually over contracts, classroom settings. A long time ago, teachers were required to clean their classrooms. We took that out. We're not the janitor. That doesn't mean the janitor is not worthwhile, but our sole interest is to educate that child.
Okay.
So,
and you talked before a bit about parent involvement and really wanting to make sure that parents are included in the education of their children. Do you work at all with other organizations like Parent-Teacher Association?
We're starting to.
Okay.
We have a strong tie with them. Locally, we do. We know that for a child to get a good education, you have to have the backing of the parent because the teacher can only go so far. We don't want them to be. We don't want the two organizations to be stranger, because if they work together, then the outcome is a better school district, a better school, and a better child.
Right.
So we have talks. It's still in the fledgling stages for us. We're just a year old. We're hoping by the end of the second year, and that will be done by my predecessor because this is my last semester here. This is my last part of my presidency. Jill Langley will be taking over. She's going to continue that relationship of building with the PTA and with KNEA.
Okay. One of the things that has impressed me in our conversation is that in everything that you say, it always boils down to what's best for the child. So I have a question. What led you personally to education?
I wanted to be a teacher when I graduated high school back in '84. But the emphasis I got pushed in, it's like, oh, you want to go into business. You want to go into business. I went into business. I worked some 20 plus years in the business world. I had jobs ranging from office management to a travel agency to advertising. I got laid off in 2009 and I was dissatisfied. I hated my jobs other than travel because I was a European specialist and I could use my history. It wasn't my first love. I was like, I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to do what I want to do. I want to be able to teach history, whether it's on a high school level or eventually in the college level. It's what I love to do. I like to get people to have that little aha moment when the light bulb goes on. I want people to understand that some of the things that we do in our country, we've done before, but we don't retain that knowledge.
Right.
And we need to.
Right. So what is it about history specifically? Did you have a teacher that really sparked your interest?
I had a teacher, and then, this sounds funny, but my family's been here since 1619.
Okay.
History has been taught to me from the moment I could walk. We came here before we were a nation.
Right.
We helped found this nation. My family has fought in every single war there's ever been on both sides of the Civil War, the losing and the winning. But it's the pride of building a country. But it's also the fact that it's like unfolding layers of a puzzle. You've got all these multiple colored pieces, but as you weave them back in together, you get the clear picture.
Right.
And history to me holds that puzzle. It's also government. I don't just want to be able to teach history. I like the government part too. Often we have people today who gripe about the president, and yet if they really knew the government, the power doesn't lie within Barack Obama or whoever we get as a current president. It's the Senate and the House of Representatives.
Right.
But most people don't know that because they think of that one job. So as a teacher, your job is to teach that and get them to click that idea and to retain it.
And so how do you do that? I mean, I am not a history buff, I will admit that. And I think for many students, it's, okay, history, I know I have to take this, but I really don't want to take this class, it's boring. How do you bring that alive?
By stepping outside the box. And that is the teachers that stood out in my mind are the ones who stepped outside the box. History can be boring if it's just facts, names, and places. History is alive. It is still being discovered and unlocked as we research and discover more. You have to remember today's students are very tech savvy. So if you're going to take them back to when there wasn't this techno stuff, you need to explain to them why it still matters. I tutor in history, and so I'm constantly explaining to the students that it does matter. I've got a student right now who's studying the Reformation, when before there was only one church for Christianity, and the Reformation is when you get the split between the Catholicism and the Protestantism. How that one act would have resounding effects throughout Europe and would lead to the reason we have separation of church and state today in the United States. And why our founding fathers went that way. So you bring it forward and you engage them and you keep showing them how it matters today, how you have the resounding effects of something that happened 500 years ago. So,
and I think you raise a good point there. It's, what does that mean to me? You know, I don't necessarily care about what happened in 1600 unless you can relate that to what's going on with me right now. And I think that's where our students typically are.
And you have to get them to understand that just because it happened way back again doesn't mean you still don't have the resounding effects. I mean, we had crusades that happened back in the Middle Ages that soured the relationship with the Western civilization and the Muslim Empire.
Right.
That we still fight the effects of today.
Right.
So
tell me, so you want to be a teacher, that's your lifelong dream, here you are. Tell me how involvement with KNEA, with the student chapter, has an impact on your education, or does it have an impact on your education?
It does have an impact on my education. It gives me resources to look at from other teachers. When I'm in a teaching class and they're asking me to look at bullying in the classroom, I can then go to the website and go through all of these teachers who've wrote lesson plans, who have experiences, who have stories, and I can pull that knowledge and then answer the question. It gives me a background to look for. It gives me a base. You know, as in nursing, when you have nursing associations, you have a base. This is what KNEA is. It's your base. It's your knowledge base. You can go back and say, how do I do this? How do I change this? Has there someone who has gone through this before?
Is there a sense of maybe connectedness then within that organization? Because even those of you who are students here on campus, it's easy, I think, sometimes to become a silo. You know, you go to class, you do your assignments, you know, and the next day you begin all over again. But is there a greater sense of connectedness for those of you who are involved?
Yes, you realize that you're part of a community, and that community is in all 50 states. You know, we are several thousand members strong. Well, more than several thousand, but there's people who've walked the same footsteps we have walked. There's people who are currently walking them. It's an embracement. You're not out there by yourself. And it's really great when you're a non-traditional student like me. It's also great when you are a traditional student and you're trying to figure out, okay, I'm getting into teaching college. What field am I going to go? Am I going to go elementary? Okay, what am I going to face at these different grade levels? Or am I going to go middle school or high school?
Right. So. And I think for non-traditional students, and when I say non-traditional, I'm thinking those students who did not just graduate from high school last May and they've come to college for the first time, those of us who've been in the workforce for a while, you know, we've had families. Do you get a sense that maybe non-traditional students are more appreciative of the information and of the supports that they're getting, or is there a difference between the traditional and the non-traditional? I,
at this college, think the traditional students look at it and it's like, okay, I can wait till I get to 4 years of school. And we're trying to explain, no, you need to do this now. The non-traditional students, it's like, great, tell me what I can get from this. And there's a lot of things just beyond what we get for our teaching. We get benefits. You're in teaching insurance, which you want. There's also discounts and things like that. But that's because it's such a large body and we can people come to us. That's a side perk. That's not the reason you join.
I would think it would also just kind of expand your horizons. I'm thinking, if I was born and raised right here in Wyandotte County, this is all I know. And and as you said, you're now exposed then to this huge network that that is just everywhere. And so maybe instead of thinking, okay, I'm going to teach at this elementary school that's 2 blocks away from my house, now teaching halfway across the country is no longer a foreign concept to me.
It does. It gets you outside of just Wyandotte County. It gets you outside of Kansas. It makes you think of teaching in the United States anywhere. It also gives you the ability to think beyond just the box, because as I said, teaching is changing. You have to think outside the box. Now you have to reinvent it a lot of times. And we have people who are doing that. So you can say, it's working there. I wonder if it'll work here.
Right. So where do you want to teach?
My goal is eventually to teach on the college level.
Okay.
History in public schools is restrictive because there's so much you can't tell them, because it does cover religion, it covers sex, things like that. And we give high school students a very warped sense of U.S. history. When you get them in the college level, you strip it bare and you're saying, this is the good, this is the bad, and oh God, this is the ugly part of it. But you know what? Out of the ugly came this good. So my goal is eventually to be into the college level, but you're still involved in NEA and KNEA when you're in the college level too.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there is a KNEA chapter here on chapter. Jerry Pope is the head of that, and he's also on the state part of that too.
Okay. Well, this has been exciting. Thank you so much. I really feel like you all have filled a niche here on campus, and so I'm excited to know that your organization is here on campus. I hopefully your legacy will continue once you're gone. Now, when do you graduate?
I will finish in May.
Okay,
and
congratulations.
I'm waiting for the little letter to come from KU. I think it should.
Okay.
And I'll end up with a degree in history and a degree in education.
Very good. Very good. I think you'll make a great teacher.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
For joining us today. And thank you all for joining us on another episode of Focal Point. We'll see you next time.